There's a standard you become accustomed to in your life. You want to reclaim the health that you once had.
Once suspected of murdering his ex-girlfriend, having lost a child before it was even born, nearly dying from a rare, blinding disease, and staggering out of a divorce that stunned the world. Ashton Kutcher, the man Hollywood molded into a perfect icon, is, in truth, a soul fractured and scarred. The whole world watched him through a dazzling, deceptive lens, a smile bright as sunshine, an unshakable, confident demeanor, the hero of every dreamy romantic movie. But no one knew that behind the curtain lay a weary, wounded soul. This is the story of the 13-year-old boy standing by his twin brother's hospital bed, silently wishing he could die in his place. The young man rushing to his girlfriend's house only to be met by yellow police tape and a stretcher draped with a cold white sheet. The star standing amidst millions of flashing lights, yet feeling utterly, crushingly alone, as if no one truly saw him. When Demi Moore exposed him to the public, he lost not only a marriage, but also the fragile belief that he was worthy of love. Then one day, when it seemed nothing could break him, his own body betrayed him. His eyes gradually lost their light. His ears no longer registered his child's laughter. His legs that once ran tirelessly began to tremble because of a cruel, silent disease. Ashton Kutcher had to learn again how to stand, how to see, how to hear, and even how to breathe. And through it all, only one small, haunting question remained. If I disappear, will anyone remember the real me? If you have ever smiled while your heart was actively breaking, ever felt seen but completely misunderstood, you need to listen to this story, because it is not only the story of a Hollywood star, it is the story of all of us, those still learning to survive through unseen wounds, still clinging to the hope that tomorrow the light will finally find us. That winter, under the small roof in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, was colder than ever. Snow silently blanketed the cornfields, and the wind whistled through cracks like a desperate, endless cry. In the cramped room, two twin boys lay side by side, Ashton and Michael Kutcher. They were both born on February 7, 1978. But from the very first moment, fate had chosen brutally different paths for the two brothers. Ashton was born healthy, weighing over 10 lb, while Michael was a tiny 4.6 lb and did not breathe at birth. "This baby will have to fight for every breath," the doctor stated, and their mother could only nod, tears silently soaking her pillow. Michael's life from then on became a desperate series of battles against death. At age 3, he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, a disease that imprisoned his childhood in a frustratingly fragile body. He later vividly recalled being mocked, being called cruel names on the playground, memories etched in his soul like scars that would never truly heal. The brothers' childhood was a perfect, heartbreaking contrast between relentless strength and profound fragility. The small home in Homestead had 3 bedrooms. The familiar smell of toast from their father, Larry's General Mills factory, drifted in each morning. They ran wildly around the backyard, fought intensely over the baseball, and laughed until their stomachs ached. Michael was quieter, but his smile always held a deep warmth for Ashton. "You're slow as a turtle," Ashton teased, then ran effortless circles while Michael struggled to chase him. Those early years were filled with golden sunlight and shared laughter. Then one day in 1989, when both were 11, Michael collapsed violently on the school playground during gym class. He lay there, his face turning an alarming blue, his small hands clutching his chest. Ashton rushed over, screaming desperately for teachers. "Michael, Michael, get up!" His voice rang frantically across the field, but Michael only whispered back, "Ashton, my heart hurts." It was the first time Ashton felt true, sharp fear, icy like a knife slicing through his chest. Doctors diagnosed Michael with dilated cardiomyopathy. His heart was twice the normal size, pumping weakly, struggling. Diane cried silently in the hospital hallway. Larry held his wife's hand tightly, and Ashton, just 13 years old, felt terrifyingly small before the world. "Why, Michael?" he asked himself, staring at his brother tangled in tubes. "Why not me?" Doctors said Michael had only weeks to live without a heart transplant. Ashton, still just a boy, completely collapsed. He was willing to do anything to save his brother, even offer his own heart. He told his mother, his voice firm, "If anyone is a match, I'll be the one." Luckily, within 24 hours, a donor heart became miraculously available, and the surgery succeeded. But the moment Ashton saw his brother lying in that hospital bed was etched into his mind forever, a chilling reminder of how fragile life could be. After surgery, Michael had to fight again due to terrifying blood clot complications. Ashton sat vigilantly by the bedside, counting each faint, desperate heartbeat. He was no longer a carefree child. In his eyes, life had become terrifyingly fragile, as if turning away for a moment could make a loved one vanish completely. Many years later, as a successful adult, Ashton carried that feeling with him. In interviews, he sometimes fell silent, his thoughts clearly recalling his childhood. He once confessed, "I don't know if I deserve this happiness. Every time I smile, I think of my brother who had to learn to smile through such deep pain." It seemed fate had softened, but precisely because of two disabled children, his parents divorced in 1992. Diane remarried Mark Portwood. Ashton grew up split between two homes, feeling achingly like he belonged nowhere. "I didn't want to go home," he later admitted, perpetually afraid the phone would ring, afraid it was news that Michael had passed. To escape the fear, he turned to mischief, theft, alcohol, drunk driving. In 1995, he was arrested for breaking into Clear Creek Amana High School to steal money. The court sentenced him to 3 years of probation, and his college scholarship vanished. That stumble cost him dearly. His girlfriend left. Scholarships were revoked. His name removed from the National Honor Society, the choir, and all the plays he loved. The whole town turned its back on the young man, once seen as a role model. But in that abyss, Ashton found a glimmer of light. He later said that mistake awakened him, teaching that humans truly mature only when they face the brutal consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, Michael did not give up. He attended college, graduated in finance, and became a speaker for disabled children through the organization Reaching for the Stars. Ashton left Iowa in 1995, carrying childhood scars, and embarked on a perilous Hollywood career. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you rate Ashton Kutcher, a man who grew up literally through the depths of despair? Share your thoughts below, as every comment helps us understand this journey better. Just when it seemed the childhood wounds had finally settled, as the first light of fame touched him, life opened another bloody, horrifying chapter. A pain that forced Ashton to face the true cost of survival. In 2001, at the peak of his rising career, Ashton frequently enjoyed parties that lasted until dawn and endless dates. It was then that the name Ashley Ellerin appeared, a 22-year-old with shiny brown hair and a smile that melted everything. She entered his life like a sudden December wind. They met at a mutual friend's birthday party where Ashley danced as if the world were her personal stage. "You're the first person who made me laugh until my stomach hurt," she told him, her eyes sparkling. At the time, Ashton was still in another relationship, merely introducing her to friends. But once both were single, late-night calls began, and he found himself undeniably drawn into Ashley's brilliance. On February 21st, Grammy night, Ashton called Ashley at 8:24 p.m. "Do you want to go out tonight? After the awards, we'll party?" he said, excited. Ashley laughed warmly on the phone. "Sure, but don't be late, Kutcher." She was at her Hollywood Hills home, freshly showered, preparing her makeup. Ashton was watching the Grammys at a friend's house, joking with friends, thinking tonight would be a memorable night. He didn't know that in the darkness outside, eyes had been watching Ashley's every step for weeks. Ashton arrived late, as usual. At 10:45 p.m., he drove to Ashley's small bungalow and knocked loudly on the door. No answer. He called, but no response. Looking through the window, he saw a red stain on the carpet. He assumed it was wine from a recent housewarming party. Her car was in the driveway, lights off inside. "She must be mad I'm late," he muttered, leaving an apology message and driving away. On the way back, he laughed to himself, imagining how Ashley would scold him in the morning. He had no idea the red stain was not wine. The next morning, the phone rang. A mutual friend. "Ashton, Ashley, she's dead." The voice broke completely. Ashton froze, his hands shaking, dropping the phone with a clatter. He rushed to the police station. His fingerprints were still on Ashley's door, the door he had knocked on the night before. The police showed him crime scene photos. Ashley lay deceased in the hallway outside the bathroom. She was attacked right after her shower, they explained. Ashton felt the world collapse into a horrific void. "I was there," he whispered, tears streaming. "I saw the blood, but I thought it was wine." Police interrogated him for hours. "Did you see anyone suspicious?" "No, just me." He recounted every minute detail. The 8:24 call, arriving late, the red stain. He was not a suspect. The timeline didn't match, but the obsession began. In the days after, the press exploded. Ashton Kutcher's girlfriend brutally murdered, TV star linked to Hollywood Ripper case. He stayed silent, avoiding public appearances, locking his phone away. Every time he closed his eyes, he still saw that horrifying red stain, a mark that would never be washed away. Many said it was an accident, that he could do nothing. But inside Ashton, the unanswered question twisted endlessly. If he had arrived a few minutes earlier, would she have lived? Time passed. His career exploded. He acted, laughed, walked red carpets, head held high amid the flashes. Sometimes he saw Ashley's face in the crowd, distant and hazy. Some nights he dreamed of standing in front of that old house, knocking endlessly with no answer. Inside, the hairdryer hummed, then abruptly stopped. He woke drenched in sweat, his heart violently racing. The case lasted 18 years. Finally, Michael Gargulo, the seemingly friendly neighbor a block away, was arrested in 2008, thanks to DNA under a surviving victim's fingernails. It turned out he had been stalking Ashley weekly, parking outside her home, staring through the windows. He killed her in minutes, then vanished into the darkness. Ashton followed every development but did not speak publicly, fearing the pain would utterly consume him. In 2019, he had to testify in court. Standing before the jury, looking at Gargulo's cold, lifeless eyes, Ashton visibly trembled. "I remember that night clearly," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I knocked. I saw blood, but I thought she was mad at me." Ashley's father, Rick Ellerin, sat in the front row, tears streaming. Ashton desperately wanted to apologize, but his throat was tight. "I ruined her last date," he thought, his own tears falling onto the courtroom floor. Gargulo was sentenced to death in 2021. Justice had arrived, but for Ashton, it was never enough. He no longer attended loud parties. Every time he drove through Hollywood Hills, he deliberately avoided the street leading to Ashley's house. "She was the first to dance in that room," he told me, his voice trembling with lacuna. "Now, every time I hear music, I remember that smile and the blood on the carpet, the blood on." 2 years after that tragedy, when Ashton thought fate had stopped tormenting him and the light of happiness barely glimmered yet, destiny forced him to endure pain even deeper than death. In 2003, as his inner scars barely began to heal, he met Brittany Murphy, a girl with a pure, sunny smile and eyes that made others forget all darkness. They starred together in Just Married, a romantic comedy about young love and thrilling naivety. On the red carpet, they shone like a fairy tale couple. But as with all beautiful things, their love was cruelly short-lived. Only months after Just Married premiered, they parted quietly. No arguments, no blame. Just two people passing each other silently like stars, drifting inexorably apart in the sky. 6 years later, destiny struck again, cold and indifferent, waiting for the perfect moment to land a fatal blow. In December 2009, news of Brittany Murphy's death at 32 spread like lightning. Pneumonia, anemia, drugs. The cold words on the death certificate could not convey the devastating truth. A vibrant young woman had gone suddenly, leaving an irreplaceable void. When he heard the news, Ashton went numb. He didn't cry in front of the cameras, didn't react aloud. He just sat by the window for a long, silent time, looking down at the city where they once laughed together. In an interview, he spoke softly, his voice breaking into pieces. She was the one who always walked into a room and was the first to dance. I just try to hold on to that memory, cherish the light in her and not try to make sense of it because some things in this world cannot be explained. Do you think those two tragedies were enough to break Ashton Kutcher? Think again. Because just when he thought he could finally breathe after the losses, 2003 opened a new chapter where a love both beautiful and cruel began, and then became a scar haunting the rest of his life. That same year, the name Ashton Kutcher filled every headline, not because of a role that made history, but because of a romance that stunned all of Hollywood, the radiant young man with the legendary sex symbol, Demi Moore. But the world didn't know that behind that dazzling glow lay a bitter truth, quietly waiting for the moment to be revealed. In 2003, Ashton began dating Demi despite a 15-year age gap. Though they only met at a regular party, for Ashton, it was anything but ordinary. She walked in, her eyes deep as if holding a lifetime of sun and rain. He later confessed, "When I saw her, I knew something inside me had just changed." They fell in love quickly, intensely, despite all the venomous gossip. The 15-year gap became a consuming flame that fueled public curiosity and skepticism. But for Ashton, it was just a number. He saw in Demi not an older woman, but a soul that had been shattered, still desperately trying to believe in love. And perhaps in his embrace, she believed once more. They married in 2005 in a private, candlelit ceremony. Ashton beamed beside her, while Demi cried tears of both happiness and profound fear. She had once lost everything, and now she dared to believe she could be loved again. In those early years, they were a vibrant symbol of a love beyond prejudice. Ashton cared for Demi's 3 daughters as his own. He once deeply stated, "I didn't just marry her, I married the whole family." In the public eye, they were a dream couple, beautiful, successful, and full of love. But behind the smiles and perfect photos lay a silent, gut-wrenching pain that few knew. When Demi wanted to have a child with Ashton, she miscarried in the 6th month. Moore revealed in her memoir, Inside Out, that she had been pregnant with Kutcher's child, but the pregnancy ended in a tragic miscarriage after 6 months. "No heartbeat anymore," she wrote, recounting that she was tormented by guilt. Moore believed that her drinking and smoking during pregnancy caused her to lose the baby. At that time, Ashton held her in the hospital, silent, as if speaking a word would make him break down completely. Yet Ashton could not save Demi. After this devastating incident, she sank deep into sorrow, and Ashton, who had once believed he could make her happy, began to feel utterly helpless. Their home, once filled with vibrant laughter, grew cold, and an invisible, growing distance slowly appeared between them. Demi began doubting herself fiercely. She feared losing him, feared being replaced by someone younger, brighter. She tried desperately to change to please him, partying, drinking, trying to live his way, and gradually lost herself in the process. Ashton did not realize that her efforts were draining her soul. He thought she was strong as she outwardly appeared, forgetting that this woman had been shattered countless times before. Pressure, flashing cameras, whispers about the age gap. The relentless couple gradually wore them down. Ashton felt trapped between two impossible worlds. One, the woman he loved, the other, his youth, quickly slipping away. He wanted to be a husband, a father, a constant support, but also wanted to live the 20s he felt he was supposed to live. In a rare moment of searing honesty, he told a friend, "I'm carrying a family I wasn't ready for. I want to do well, but maybe I'm not enough." To keep the fire alive, they experimented with an open marriage. Threesomes, the first time at a San Francisco hotel. Demi trembled, but offered a brittle smile. "If this makes you happy," she conceded. Ashton kissed her, mistakenly thinking it would bring them closer, but each time afterward, Demi grew quieter. She looked at him in the mirror, wondering, am I holding on to him or losing him? Ashton didn't notice. He was busy with movies, late-night parties, and young women who idolized him. Then everything shattered. In 2011, on their 6th wedding anniversary, Ashton was in San Diego filming 2.5 Men. He texted Demi, "I'll be home tonight." But he didn't come home. He stayed at the Hard Rock Hotel with Sarah Leal, 22, and another woman. Nude photos leaked. Demi learned through friends. She sat in the living room, her hands trembling violently, calling Ashton. "Where are you?" He stayed sickeningly silent. Demi finally cried, "I gave you everything, even what I didn't want to." Ashton rushed home, knelt, and apologized profusely. "I was wrong. Don't leave me." But Demi had made up her mind. On November 18th, Demi publicly announced the divorce. Ashton sat in his car, violently banging the steering wheel, crying, "I've destroyed paradise." He moved out, taking a few clothes. Demi kept the beautiful house but couldn't keep him. They met at court to sign papers. Ashton looked at Demi, desperately wanting to say, "I love you," but only whispered, "Thank you for 6 years." Demi nodded, tears streaming. "Thank you for being the support for the kids." Kutcher later admitted in an interview with Esquire that the divorce left a deep, indelible wound in him. "Nothing makes you feel more like a failure than a divorce," he said. "Divorce is like a crack where you've put all your trust, a failure you can't fix." That feeling haunted him for years, causing Kutcher to retreat from the spotlight to reflect on himself, a man who had lost too much, both in love and in life. After all the heartbreak, Ashton Kutcher no longer believed in love. He spent lonely years post-divorce living withdrawn, avoiding lights, avoiding even himself. But then fate, always mischievous with him, brought Mila Kunis back. The girl who kissed him on the set of That 70s Show at age 14 now stood before him, no longer the child she once was. In those eyes was the familiar mischief, but beneath it a tenderness that made Ashton's heart tremble again. They started simply. A party, a conversation lasting late into the night, a laugh over old shared memories. Mila once said, "We're not planning to marry anyone, just two friends having fun." But love, once it finds the right